So the general transformation, like if you see a function and it asks you what the transformations are, it's going to follow this format right here. And that just determines whether it goes left, right, up, down, gets bigger, gets smaller, or flips the x-axis. So the first thing we look at is this a value, which is just the number that's in front of the parentheses, like the f of x. If that a is negative, so if you have a negative sign, then you say the transformation that it reflects the x-axis. So it reflects the x-axis if it's negative. If it's a positive number, then you just don't say anything. You don't have to write as much, which is nice. Then we look at the number itself, so that value. If the number is bigger than 1, so if it's greater than 1, we say that it is stretched. Like that means that if you imagine like a rubber band, if you have it in your fingers like this, you're stretching it. You're making it longer. So that is only if your number is bigger than 1. If you have a number that is a fraction, so if it is less than 1, and it's a fraction less than 1, because if I had a fraction that was 7 over 5, then that number would still be greater than 1. So just because it's a fraction doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a compression. I use the word shrink, I think, for the most part. You can say compression or shrink. Can't really remember what's in my notes. I think I said shrink. But if you picture, I'm trying to think, like if you have some Play-Doh in your hand and it's like in a ball and you have it in between your hands, if you kind of squish it, that would be, imagine like a compression, you're squishing it. You're sitting on some Play-Doh or something. That would be like what a compression means. So you're taking a function, maybe like a parabola, and you're compressing it, you're shrinking it down. So that's if your number is less than 1. Then you look inside the parentheses. So these are the numbers that are connected with the x. They're connected with the x, so they have to be inside the parentheses. And that determines whether the function goes left or right. If it's inside the parentheses, you always take the opposite sign. So if it's x minus a number, that means it's going to go right that many units. If it's x plus a number, that means it's going to go left that many units. So you take the opposite sign of what you would think, only if it is inside the parentheses. Take the opposite sign. And then the last one is the plus k on the outside. So if it's outside the parentheses, that tells me whether it goes up or down. So you keep the sign. You keep the sign if it's outside the parentheses. So if it's plus 5, then it goes up 5 units. If it's down, I think that this in your notes, you need to change this to down. There's a typo on there, so change that to down. So if it's minus 5, then you would say down 5 units. So these are all types of transformations. We're never going to say that it reflects the y-axis because we don't learn that transformation in this class. So the only one that you need to know is the reflection of the x-axis. So if we look at number 1, if we're going to describe the transformation, the first one I want to look at is my a value. I have to decide, is it positive or negative? So is 2/3 positive or negative? Positive. So do I need to write any transformation about the positiveness? No. Just leave it be. 2/3, is it less than or greater than 1? Less than. So I'm going to say it's a vertical what? Vertical shrink, vertical compression. So I say vertical shrink by a factor of 2/3. So it's always by a factor of and then whatever that a value is. The next one I want to look at is the stuff in parentheses. So I have x plus 6. So that means it's either going to be going left or right. I take the opposite sign, and so that means it's going to be going what? Left. So I say left 6 units. All right, so for number 2, I've got almost every single transformation you could imagine. So the first thing is that negative sign. The negative sign tells me that it reflects the x-axis. Then I look at the number 2. The 2 tells me, since it is bigger than 1, that tells me that it's a vertical stretch by a factor of 2. The x plus 3, I'm going to take the opposite sign, so I'm going to say left 3 units. And then lastly, the plus or the minus 6 at the end tells me that I go down 6 units because I'm keeping that sign. Okay, number 3, this one looks a little bit easier because it doesn't have as many. So that negative sign tells me what? Reflects x-axis. Does it go left or right any? No. Does it vertically stretch or compress any? No, because the value in front of the f of x is just 1. Like if there's no number in front of it, I assume that it's 1 and it doesn't shrink or stretch. It just stays the same. So if it's not there, then you don't have to write that transformation. You just leave it blank. Kind of like if it's positive, I don't write it, reflects the x-axis. So there's no number in front. I don't say anything about that. There's nothing inside the parentheses, so that means it doesn't go left or right. But what does it do? What's the last transformation? Down 4 units. Good. So it's 5/3. So I'm going to say a vertical stretch. Why is it a stretch and not a shrink? It's greater than 1 because 5/3 is a number. Even though it's a fraction, it's bigger than 1. So vertical stretch by a factor of 5/3. And then what else does it do? Right 8 units. Good. And nothing else. All right, so with this, it doesn't actually give me a function. It just kind of gives me a picture. And what I would do if I were you is if you have this original picture, I would try to find the ordered pairs first so that you can do that transformation on a new picture. So I'm just going to label my ordered pairs first on my original photo. So this ordered pair on the bottom left is at -6, -1. This one is at -4, 3, -2, 1, 0, 5, 2, 2, 4, 4, 6, 0. So I'll let you guys fill that in really quickly, and then we'll talk about transforming it. So if we look at A, it tells me the transformation is f of x minus 3. So what transformation, or what's happening to that picture? It's doing what?
Going to the left.
Is it going left or right? Right 3. So I'm going to put right 3. And what I normally do, because it's not compressing or shrinking, is I take the bottom left dot and I go right 3, and then I just recreate the picture. So if I'm going to the right 3, if I was at -6, -1, my new point is going to be at what? -3, -1. I'm just shifting to the right 3. Like imagine taking this point right here and going over 1, 2, 3. So going to the right 3 points. Everyone see how I got that? Then from there, if I'm recreating my picture, if I'm doing that first line, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 2. So on my other picture, my transformed, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, over 2. And I'm going to draw my second dot. Because the picture looks exactly the same, it's just going to the right 3 points. And you can do it however you prefer, but for me, I just think up 4 over 2. Then down 2, right 2. up 4 over 2, down 3 over 2, up 2 over 2, and then down 4 over 2. And then connect your dots. So you could take each ordered pair and go right 3 and then connect the dots if you want, or just recreate your picture. So for B, I'm not going to draw this picture just to save time, but what transformation is happening in B? Left 2. Good. So what is happening in C? What transformation is happening in C? Down 5. So I want you to try drawing down 5, and you're going from the original picture. Down 5. So if I'm taking that bottom left point, which was at -6, -1, if I'm going down 5, what's my new point? -6, -6. Something like this. So if we look at E, what transformation's happening on E? It's a vertical stretch by 2. So this is actually an activity that we did last year called Move the Monster. That's what that little thing is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a monster. So think about taking the function or the monster and stretching it out. Like it could be its mouth or something, and you're stretching it out. So what you're going to do to each ordered pair, if it's a vertical stretch by 2, vertical means that it's changing the y values. So you're going to take every y value and you're going to multiply it by 2. So you're going to multiply every y value by 2. And so if you flip to the first page, I have them. I can write out the ordered pairs. If the first one is -6, -1, my new ordered pair, if I multiply that y value by 2, it's going to be -6, what? -2. So I'm going to put a point at -6, -2. The next ordered pair that we had was -4, 3. So my new ordered pair will be at -4, what? 6. Good. So notice that it's getting stretching out higher and lower. The next ordered pair was at -2, 1. So my new ordered pair will be at -2, 2. The next was at 0, 5. So it would be 0, what? 0, 10. I think that's the highest one. Is that the top point, I think? Yeah. The next one was at 2, 2. So what will the new point be at? 2, 4. Good. The next point was at 4, 4. So the next point will be at what? 4, 8. And then the last point was at 6, 0. So what will that point be at? 6, 0, because 0 times 2 is still 0. So then I want to connect my dots. If you flip to the front and look at your picture compared to the original, you can kind of see that the monster, or whatever you want to call it, is stretched out. Like think about taking a rubber band and stretching it. The next one, so F, what is happening to F? It reflects the x-axis. So that just means that it is flipping. So what do you think I'm going to do to all of my y values? I'm going to flip the sign, right? So I'm going to take each y value, I'm going to flip the sign. So if I look at my original order pairs, if my first point was at -6, -1, my new point will be at what? -6, 1. So if my original was at -6, -1, my new one is at -6, +1. So all I'm doing is I'm flipping the y value. It's like taking your monster and flipping it like a pancake, flipping it over. So if the other point was at -4, 3, my new point is at what? -4, -3. -2, 1 becomes what? -2, -1. 0, 5. 0, -5. 2, 2 becomes 2, -2. 4, 4 becomes 4, -4. And 6, 0 becomes what? And 6, 0 becomes 6, 0. Does not change. So all I did was flip it. Kind of looks like you're flipping a pancake. For G, we're not going to draw this one for the sake of time, but what would I do? Or what's the transformation, first of all? Vertical, stretch or shrink? Shrink, because why? Less than 1, so shrink by 1/2. So what am I going to do to the picture? Multiply what by 1/2? I'm going to multiply all of the y values by 1/2. And then I plot my points. Okay, I want you to try H on your own. It's going to have 2 transformations. But what is something that you notice? Like, are there any compressions or shrinks? No. Are there any reflections? No. So the picture is just going right or left and up or down. So you can take that first point, which is -6, -1, and you can do the transformation to that point and then recreate the picture. So looking at the last ones, it's now giving us the transformation and it's wanting us to write the equation. So we're doing the opposite of what we've done in the past. So the first thing it says vertical shift down 5, right 3. And we're going to try and make it look just like the general equation, which is the f of x. So we're going to be comparing everything to f of x. So inside the parentheses, I'm going to put f of x. If I'm going right 3, what needs to go next to the x? -3. And then what would I do for the down 5? Put -5 on the outside. Good. Do I need a negative sign? Yes or no? Do I need a negative sign in front? No, because it doesn't say reflection. Do I need a number in front of the f of x? No, because it doesn't tell me shrink or stretch. So I'm done with that one. Okay, number 8, it says reflection over the x-axis. So what do I need to put? Negative. Vertical compression by a factor of 1/3. So what do I need to do with that? Put a 1/3 in front of the f. Then I have an f of x. Does it go left or right any? No, so I just close the parenthesis, nothing next to the x. Then it says up 5, so what do I do with that? Plus 5. Good. Okay, try number 9. Okay, so with number 10, reflection over the x-axis, that means it's a negative. Goes right 3, so I take the opposite sign for inside the parentheses, and then it goes down 1.